Welcome in to a Tuesday here at Palmetto Sports Daily, and I know everyone is always wondering, when are we going to get some Julia and Kevin shows? Well, today is your day. We are answering the call. We're here for you. Well, Kevin, there's a lot to get to, and we'll kick things off with ACC. It's a big week for Clemson, of course, hosting their local media day today, and then they'll be up in Charlotte on Thursday for ACC kickoff. So lots of things getting here on the precipice of football season. Really looking forward to all of that. But today we are down a couple of members, but that's because Carmine Jammet and Caroline Soro are boots on the ground covering Clemson's local media day, and they've got a little look into the action here for us.
Yeah, guys, we have football going on and also American football getting ready to start up, like you just said. And it's very exciting here at Clemson Media Day because the Tigers are talking about this upcoming season. Basically, they're cycling out these coaches in a conveyor belt style, 3 at a time. We'll hear from 15 different assistants on the podium, 40 total available for interviews outside in the media area as well. And Caroline, a lot of the talk is about the Tigers trying to bounce back from a disappointing season last year.
Yeah, Carmine, disappointing is probably a good way to describe it, especially for Clemson fans who were hoping for a little bit more from this team last year, right? Some of the coaches that we're seeing here today are new coaches because Clemson's trying to recycle, renew, kind of get this thing off the ground and in a better spot than they ended it in last season when they finished the season 7-6. If you're just going to take a look at this video, we can kind of recap through what last season was like a little bit. The Tigers starting out the year 1-3, like I mentioned, finishing with that 7-6 record. They lost 3 games at home for the first time in a long time. It was a team that was picked to win the ACC conference, didn't quite get there, and was also ranked in the top 5 in the AP poll going into the season. So not to just kind of hash through all of the things that maybe went wrong, but just to kind of set up, what last season was, and Carmine, now what the Tigers are hoping this season is going to be.
Yeah, and they finished last season with their worst record in 15 years, even though they returned 16 starters to that team last year. This year, lots of fellas trying to prove themselves, including their new quarterback and their new offensive coordinator, Chad Morris. And we have video of both of them here as well. Cade Klubnik, the 3-year starter, the 2-time ACC champion, has moved on to the New York Jets as a 4th-round draft pick. And now who's replacing him? Well, so far, it's Christopher Vazina, who is stepping in, and he started against SMU last year, threw for 3 touchdowns, 317 yards in a loss at Memorial Stadium just across the street. But Caroline, pushing him is Tate Reynolds, a true freshman, and you spoke with Taj Boyd, a quarterback legend, who's now a quarterback's coach for the first year with the Tigers. And it's not as sure as some people might think of who the next starter at QB will be.
Yeah, and Coach Boyd was asked about that a little bit ago, and he was kind of non-committal to give his answer, which, that would have been a little bit crazy for him to go ahead and name somebody, right? There's still a little bit of a gray area, and he said that Tate Reynolds is exactly who they thought he was going to be based on his high school tape, but he also said that Christopher Vazina has made all kinds of strides, and Christopher Vazina is exactly who he thought Vazina was going to be, and he's proud of who he is at this current moment. He said he's really grabbed this whole situation by the horns, and he's impressed with how he's been able to lead the team, how the team is kind of behind him. But again, to your point, he said that everything is a competition. It reminds him of being back here at Clemson in 2011 when he was the quarterback, right? And he also mentioned, as you mentioned, new offensive coordinator Chad Morris, that there's a lot of similarities there as well, because Chad Morris was Taj Boyd's offensive coordinator when he was a player, and now they're on the same team together. But he did say that there's a shift in mindset, there's a shift in players, Carmine. A lot of different vibes going on here so far.
Yes, and we'll bring you all the different vibes and the vibes that'll remain the same all day long at Clemson
so many vibes.
Day. But for now, in Clemson for Caroline Soro, I'm Carmine Jammet for Palmetto Sports.
Great stuff, guys. And Kevin, we're going to be talking about football throughout the next couple of months. But getting toward ACC Media Days this week, obviously Clemson is coming off of, as they just touched on, a season that they paled in comparison to past years. Just what are you expecting to hear from Dabo this week, and what do you think he really needs to say to reassure people that there's not going to be a repeat of last year?
Well, I think Dabo is not going to say anything outlandish. We're not expecting him to come out and, throw his fist onto the desk and say Clemson's going 12-0 and they're going to get back to the national championship and go to the playoff and anything like that. That's not his style at all. I'm not really sure what to expect from him other than just him saying that he loves his team and he's built this team from the way he wants to build it, and he's confident that they're going to do well in the ACC. I'm not as confident as I'm sure he is. I think the quarterback position is a big question mark, like you heard Carmine talk about. I'm really interested to see what Chad Morris brings back to this offense, a guy who put up huge numbers the first time he was in Clemson, like we talked about, so many times. But, is that offense still going to be the way to work in college football right now, or has things kind of passed him by a little bit? I'm curious to see that because, in the steps Chad Morris has had since he left Clemson, nothing has really been, too spectacular for him. So I'm not sure if this offense is still the way to go. I don't know. I'm hoping that he's made some adjustments to this offense since the last time he was here, and he's made some changes, and the personnel's not going to be as good as it was back then. But a lot of questions, especially on offense, Julia, that I'm curious to see, and we're not going to hear him answered at ACC Media Day, not until they take the field.
Well, and to that point as well, with how many questions surround the offense, there's also always the question is, when is the Clemson defense ever going to get back to the way it used to years ago when it was heralded as one of the best in the country? And I feel like it hasn't in the past few years been what it used to be. So there's a lot of things that they're focusing on. And, the big thing is this is a huge overhaul that we haven't necessarily seen with this team in quite some time. So it's going to be really interesting seeing, quarterback position, as we touched on. It's completely new. You've spent time with Cade Klubnik over the past several years, and now you're kind of testing out the waters with Vizina, who's supposed to be the guy. But, it's good to hear that there's some competition in that room as well. But there's going to be a lot of changes throughout the entire team, which I feel like is very interesting because it hasn't always been that way with this team.
No, and that's something that Dabo Swinney, it's been against him over the last few years, is his lack of reception to making change, whether it's on his coaching staff or the way he's bringing guys into this program. This really marks the first time that he's just kind of thrown all of his chips to the middle of the table and said, I am still the guy to run this program. I'm willing to make these changes, and here's what we need to do to make this work. So, it's hard to imagine that anything short of a complete catastrophe is going to put Dabo on the hot seat after this year. But I'm still curious to see, if they get off to a slow start, how much do the fans start to murmur a little bit that it might be time for a change in Death Valley?
Going to be interesting. And of course, we will hear from Dabo and several of the players who will join him in Charlotte on Thursday. And then next week, we have SEC Media Days to look forward to. We'll touch on that a little bit after the break. Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. Kevin, we've touched on the ACC, so now it's time to flip to the other side and talk a little SEC football. Of course, we're awaiting SEC Media Days a week from today. South Carolina will take the podium down in Tampa, which I know they've been moving the destination around a little bit. I'm struggling to find the connection here from the SEC in Tampa. I mean, Dallas was a bit of a stretch a couple of years ago, but I feel like we're losing the plot a little bit here. But hey, Rick Henry's going to have a great time down there. It's going to be beautiful. Nice little vacation for him before all this stuff goes crazy. But want to start before we dive into our talk of what we want to expect from the Gamecocks next week with this past weekend. I went to a GameStop event where Kelby and Drew Collins, they are brothers. They're incoming transfer defensive players. They held this event at GameStop to celebrate the release of College Football 27. Now, Kevin, I don't know if you're a big video game person. I personally am not. I've always supported other people in that endeavor, but I don't know what I'm doing when I pick up a controller. Anyways, not the point. Cool thing about this is they are brothers. Lenoris and Jaden Sellers, brothers. Aiden and Andrew Harris, twins. South Carolina is going to have 3 sets of brothers on the team next year, and I feel like that's so rare. And I got a chance to talk to the Collins brothers about how, hey, family is already really ingrained in football culture. You become a family when you play on these teams. So what's it like when you have so much actual family on the team as well?
It's kind of crazy. So my locker mate is Jaden Sellers. So I mean, just looking over his, hey, that's Lenore's brother, and we have that same connection. So that's just pretty cool.
I feel like all of the brothers on the team have the same connection. We got a set of twins, then we got Jaden and Lenore's, and I feel like we all the brothers are connected the same way. And I feel like it's different when we all go out there because they can look over and see their brother as well. So yeah, I feel like it just brings us closer as a team.
Now, Drew's coming here from Arkansas State, and then Kelby, he has made 2 stops in the SEC. He started at Florida, and then he came here from Alabama, so lots of SEC experience for him. He's just kind of doing a tour around the conference, but both of them are really excited to be playing for the Gamecocks, and they're really excited to play together again because that's not something they've done for several years. So I think that's going to be really cool and just kind of a fun storyline that you wouldn't just pick out, but I think it's really awesome that you get to play with your family and your family,
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, especially to have 3 sets of them. We saw the Sellers brothers last year. Now we're up in the ante a little bit with 2 more sets of brothers, including 1 set of twins this year. So that'll be fun to see for the Gamecocks this year. I'm more interested that you don't play video games, but you support it. So that's an important step, Julia. So I was really impressed with that.
Hey, you know what? During COVID, one of my friends, this was before the game came back, we started figuring out how to play NCAA 14, and I created a guy named Trey Spur. Took him on a dynasty somewhere. I hope he's doing well now. Trey, you led me to the promised land when I played the game for like 3.5 days and then probably forgot about it forever, but I will never forget you, Trey Spur. Anyways,
3.5 days?
Next week, the Gamecocks are going to be in Tampa for SEC Media Days, and there's obviously a lot of, curiosity about this team as well, in the same sense as Clemson, as South Carolina did not have a good season last year. And I think this time a year ago, expectations were pretty high for a team that there were so many questions about. So, unsurprisingly, they struggled in 2025 and couldn't really find their identity for much of the season. But now, heading into 2026, obviously the number one thing people keep asking about is Shane Beamer on the hot seat? And he's addressed that this summer. He's like, I'm well aware that that's a narrative that's out there. Just going to let the work speak for itself. But I think that's something that people will obviously be monitoring because this is kind of an interesting season to pinpoint based on what happened last year. But I do think there has been a very concerted effort to overhaul from last season, in the same sense that there's so much new at Clemson now. There's also so much new at South Carolina. You ditch the Mike Shula experiment and then bring in a new OC, and you're bringing in a lot of guys. Producer Nick will be happy for me to mention the offensive line has been a primary point of focus for bringing in transfers. They've brought in 10 new guys because that was such a struggle last year. So, Kevin, just what do you think are the main things that needed to be focused on in fixing up this team? And do you feel like a lot of it has been addressed from what we've seen of bringing players into this team?
From what we've seen as far as just names coming in and out, it seems like they've taken care of a good amount of the problems they had last year. The thing is, when you're a team in the SEC like South Carolina, if you have your starting quarterback coming back like South Carolina does, they should be a top 25 team right now because Lenore Sellers is coming back and he should be considered, probably one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country, with the way things started off last year and the season he had the year before. It's not quite like that because of the season they had last year. So more expectations are on them this year. And, Sellers probably not considered, one of the better quarterbacks in the country, even though he probably should be. But it's tough. You go back and forth so much with everything that he's done. And, he's had his moments where he looks like he could be the guy and, be a top 5 draft pick. But we just haven't seen the consistency from him. And I think that's the biggest thing we need to see. And the success for the Gamecocks this year is going to lie on Sellers' shoulders, Julia.
Absolutely. And based on how last year went, this time a year ago, we were talking about him and Cade Klubnik being Heisman contenders going into the season. And it's so wild to now, a year later, look how all of that went and, reflect on those conversations. But definitely a make or break season for Lenoris in terms of what he can put forth for NFL scouts and kind of, mapping out his future. I do think, to your point, he's a very great player, but the consistency needs to be found. But I think what will help him is all of the people that have been brought in order to make his job easier, because the offensive line last year, absolutely did not do that. So I think if you refine the offensive line here and give him some time, you could see maybe a little bit more of the Lenoris we saw 2 seasons ago, which would be really exciting to see again. But looking forward to seeing what they put out there. Lenore Sellers, Nick Harbor, and Peyton Williams will be with Beamer in Tampa next week. We'll have plenty of that on the show next week as well. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome back into Palmetto Sports Daily. It is time to talk some hockey. It has been just about a month since the Stanley Cup playoffs ended. And Julia, I know you know there are a few things I enjoy more on this show and in this job than being proven right. And I think what we saw last week with the unveiling of the Stanley Cup and the names put on the cup can do nothing more than prove that I was 100% right when I said this Carolina Hurricanes franchise was complete trash. Because what the owner did was complete garbage. I don't know if we have a picture of this, producer Nick, but when they engraved the names onto the Stanley Cup, it's the name of the owner, the coaches, and all the players, support staff gets engraved onto the cup. And it's up to the owner to decide who he wants on the cup and what. There's all kinds of criteria, how many games the guy played for a team. If there's enough room left over, you start getting equipment managers on there and stuff like that. Owner Tom Dundon, who just recently bought the Hurricanes, put his name first, which absolutely he should. He's the owner. He's the reason all this happens. Puts his wife after that. Okay, fine. After that, puts his 5 kids, all of their names on the Stanley Cup. It is engraved on the Stanley Cup, the names of his 5 kids. One of his kids is in kindergarten, and he has his name now engraved forever in the Stanley Cup. Guys who didn't get their names on the cup include defensemen who actually played almost 40 games for the team this season. The equipment manager who has been with the organization since they were in Hartford and they were the Whalers. He was with them the entire time, made the move down to Raleigh with them, and he still didn't get his name on the cup. So a complete trash move by this owner. I feel completely vindicated here, Julia.
First of all, just let me say how much joy I get out of getting to talk to you about the Hartford Whalers, and may they rest in peace. But this feels like a participation trophy in the worst way, and they didn't even participate. That's not even the right analogy, because they didn't. I mean, I'm trying to like put this in perspective, and there's just genuinely nothing I can compare it to. Like, I can't imagine doing absolutely nothing except for being 5 years old and then getting put on the Stanley Cup. Like, if this kindergartner has the authority to get engraved on this cup for just being somebody's kid, who's to say I'm not? Go ahead and put Julia Westerman on there. What did I do to win the Stanley Cup? Nothing. Neither did this kindergartner.
Frankly,
So
you should be offended
where's
that
my
you're not
name?
on there.
I'm not. But by these,
Should be.
constraints, I could have beat out that equipment guy too. This is crazy. And this almost feels like these kids, I wonder what their popularity level in school is at this point. It's like, oh, his dad owns the Carolina Hurricanes. Cool. But I feel like
Plummeting right now.
when little boys are at their worst, when they're like 11, I feel like if some like bitter dad finds out about this and tells their son, they're going to take this to school and be like, your name's on the Stanley Cup? What did you do? Also, could the curse work in this case? Like, what if one of these kids goes on to play hockey, but their name's already on the cup? Does that work in the same way that, like, if you touched it, you're never going to win it?
If he touches the cup, yeah. I mean, his whole career could be cursed.
I think it should work that way. How is your name going to be
I
on
hope
it?
it
You didn't
does.
do anything.
Now, there is some precedence in this move from, I believe, back in the early 80s. I read a story where the Edmonton Oilers owner put his father's name on the cup, and the father had nothing to do with the team either. And the NHL kind of saw this, and they were like, no, this isn't going to happen. So they took the father's name off the cup. Now, I'm hoping the NHL will do something like this in this scenario, because it's ridiculous. It's insulting. Yes, scratch them out. You can get
And then might I suggest
and just
the
fill in their
equipment guy, couple defensemen, Julia Westerman, Kevin Bilodeau. Who says no?
I don't want my name on there associated with
I
that
don't
trash. So just leave me out of there.
We still want
All
to be
right,
able
we're going
to
to be
win a
back
cup
to
someday.
wrap up this. Yeah, just not with them. All right. Good luck to you. We're going to be back to wrap up this edition of Palmetto Sports Daily right after this. Welcome back into Palmetto Sports Daily. Checking my rundown, it says we bid farewell to the icon herself. And that's what we're doing. Today is Julia Westerman's final show with Palmetto Sports Daily. It is her time to say goodbye. I've really racked my brain about what to get her as a gift before she leaves Columbia for her next spot. And only one thing could really do. So I'm going to do it right here in front of her. Julia, I'm going to follow you on Twitter for the first time. It's going to happen live. You're going to see it. And I'm following Julia right now. It just happened.
Oh my God.
Right in front of you. So Julia,
I'm waiting for it to come through.
is you're getting an ovation here in Charleston. So we are going to miss you. Best of luck. And yeah,
Hold on.
I told you, I wouldn't mess around with this.
It's right there. It's right there. I joked about this the other day, but I didn't know if you'd actually do it. I was like, what if I made Kevin phone me on air? Oh, I don't even know what to say now. It's been an honor. This show, I had no idea how much I was actually going to enjoy it once it kicked off, but it's fun to chat with everybody around the state. I really do think this sets South Carolina apart from a lot of other places in that we get this really well-rounded experience, just getting to chat sports all over the state every day. So it's been a pleasure. I will continue to knock the Hartford Whalers from afar. But thank you so much for the follow, Kevin. It is truly my greatest honor. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. The rest of us will see you back here tomorrow. I'm going to mute Julia right now, actually.